Tansi, everybody. Welcome to Sacred Spaces, Elder Storytelling, honoring our elders and our stories of living culture. My name is Tanis Peranto. I'm the Events and Media Manager at the American Indian Community House, and our special guest today is Zuben Ornelas. Am I saying it right, Zuben?
Yes,
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being our special guest today, Zubin. And I'll let you take it away.
thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Zuben Ornelas, and I'm Tigua from El Paso. Um, we were colonized, we were missionized by the Spanish. So originally I should be Tiwa, but the Spanish um, took my people down to El Paso and to Ysleta and instead of Isleta, and therefore I'm Tigua. My father is Lepan from San Antonio, and they were stuck in San Antonio, and they were separated from the larger tribe, and they also went underground. The Lepan went underground, and the Tigua became more or less mission Indians. You can never really take the Indian out of us. So if you go to a mission, even though they may be practicing uh, a particular religion, it's always completely infiltrated by native customs. It's very interesting. I've seen Mormons in Arizona that are native Mormons, and they're half Mormons, half natives. So uh, I had mentioned to Melissa that I was concerned about doing this because I have a memory issue. Well, and I thought about it, and my ego wanted to look good and wants you guys to like me. So I had, concerns about doing this, and I realized that it doesn't matter what I say. What matters is how I live my life. What matters is what I do. And primarily, I try to be of service to humanity, to everyone I meet. And it's not what I say. It's not what I did in my life. It's not what accomplishments. I would like you all to know and for you to think that I'm wonderful because I've had these wonderful accomplishments because um, it doesn't matter in the way that I the way that I define humility is that humility is the truth. So when I think of myself as having humility, it means I have to acknowledge the things that I don't know, acknowledge the things that I need to learn, acknowledge the things that I don't do as well, and my biggest hope is that I remain teachable. No matter how old I get, I remain teachable. And the other half of humility is recognizing um, what talents or what attributes that I have that are good that I can share with others. So it's a combination of both of those. And so it's always everything for me always seems to be a balance. There's and it takes conscious effort for me to be aware of the things I say and just about everything I do. And I thought being an elder was I was going to be able to give all that up and just sort of freestyle and say whatever I wanted and pretty much drool or do, and be served. All the kids would serve me. But no, the reality is I still have to be conscious. And especially with my memory now, I have to be more conscious and careful of what I say, of what comes out of my mouth, because with the way that this memory thing seems to work the most is I forget to use pronouns in my sentences. So it means that my wife is constantly trying to read my mind when I ask her about something, or my sentences are very rude because I don't say please and thank you sometimes, just because I forget. So it's constant. It's a learning curve, and it's an interesting. It's very, very fascinating. As you guys can see already, I find myself to be very fascinating. So so I'm constantly thinking about what I'm saying, and it's fascinating to watch this dementia that I have. I can see that, how it works, and the struggles and the challenges I have in it. And basically, it's I continue to learn, and I'm all for that. One of the odd things was that's happened is I lost a lot of my computer skills. I used to just be able to Google everything and go to any place I wanted to. Now I can't. A lot of that stuff is forgotten, so it's difficult for me. Anyway, Sheldon, let's go. Sheldon, I need you to pull your ear every once in a while.
Sheldon has to turn on his video to pull his ear. But Sheldon, before you jump in with a question, I'm just because we're live on Facebook, I'm keeping track of the people that are commenting and things. And there's people saying hello and from Pennsylvania, people sending hearts. Thank you for your words. We got Rhode Island, Copiog. I don't know did I say that wrong? Someone else said they have memory issues as well, and they admire you for doing this. Go on, be proud and humble. Don't worry, you are not judged. That's from someone named Honey May Shashaw. Scotland. Someone's watching from Scotland.
Oh,
Cool.
I think Sheldon, you want to hop in with a question?
Hi. Yes, Zuben, can you tell us the first time you came into the AICH?
We talked about, or you wrote that down, and I can't remember exactly the exact time. And you happened to write down 1974, and it was later than that, and it was at a time where there was a vetting situation going on, more or less, and I had a difficult time getting in. I had come by because at the time I was drinking, and I was hoping to get some help to stop drinking, but the vetting was so it didn't work out for me to get in. It just didn't work out for me to get in. So I want to say a little bit about how I grew up not being connected to my tribe, and how that worked out, and the way that affected my life, if that's okay, Sheldon. What happened was I grew up, and there were only a few Native people in the area where I grew up, and my parents were divorced when I was 8 years old. So that was probably the trauma of my life, was that. And I went to live with I lived with my dad for a year, and then I went to live with my mother, and we lived in South Central Los Angeles. And at the time, that was considered the most dangerous place to live in the country. And I grew up as a little gang member. I was a little, gang boy. I had, I wore my pants up to my chest, and Pendleton shirt just buttoned to the top. And I somehow had convinced my mom to buy me prescription sunglasses, and I wore those at night, thinking I was, tough. Well, it didn't work out. I mean, a lot of things happened, and ultimately I got in trouble when I was 12, and I got sent to to California Youth Authority, which was for 16-year-olds, and they beat me up until they got tired. And that traumatized me to the point to where I never wanted to be in a gang again or anything like that. And the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life was to leave my community at that time, which was my community, and to go into the white world. Go into a world that I knew nothing about. There were not any per se white people that lived in Watts. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do, was to make that transition. And it took me a long time to make that transition. I was afraid, I was shy. I thought if you had a disagreement with any kind of a white person, you had to fight. And that wasn't the case. It was a case in the barrio, but it wasn't the case in the white world. And so that affected me, and it took me a really long time. And I felt a lot of shame because I had privilege living in that white world. I had one Indian friend, his name was Jimmy King, and he was Chimewavian. And this guy was the greatest athlete. Well, he took me surfing. And for a little gang boy to go surfing, that was the most incredible thing. And that really kind of saved me from trouble for a long time. We would go surfing every Saturday, and but I felt guilty because I had left. I knew a lot of people were suffering. I knew a lot of Native people were suffering, and I had a lot of privilege. So that shame was also a big factor in my life, in that I felt a lot of shame because I was Native and I wasn't brave enough to sort of stand up for Natives or to. So I had decided I was going to be a citizen of the world. And of course, it didn't work out because my indigenousness, my spirit, there was something inside of me that was longing to know who I was. And that was really a nagging thing for me. And when my parents divorced, this is another story, but I'll just tell this part of it. I drank. I learned how to drink when I was 8 years old. And I drank for a long time. I mean, and I drank in the way that was harmful to me and was self-destructive. So that went on for a long time. And I got to New York because I was at a low point in my life. And I had seen a ballet performance. I don't know how I was writing poetry in restaurants, really bad poetry, feeling sorry for myself, just suffering, poor, pitiful me. And I saw this flyer about this ballet performance and I went to see it. And then when I finished high school, I went to Europe for a year and I traveled around all over. And when I was in Germany, I saw New York City Ballet perform, and that sparked me again. And when I got home, I got interested in ballet, and I took ballet. I just wasn't. My feet were bad. You have to have really good feet in order to be a ballet dancer, and I didn't have that. So but I loved it, and so. Ultimately, I moved to New York because I wanted to be around New York City Ballet. When I think about all the different paths that we travel, all our different paths, it's odd to me that we find ourselves in situations sometimes that are far away from what people think we should be doing. And somehow I got involved in ballet, and I spent 20 years working backstage for New York City Ballet.
Can you tell us about your friendship with Jacques Soto?
Oh, well, when Jock Soto came, I saw Jock Soto come to the company when he was 15 years old. So this was magnificent to me. So Jock was a native kid. He was a wild kid. He used to skateboard through the city. And yeah, I have to be careful about disclosing about him. He was just a hit in the company, and he was a hit in the city. The people that he knew, the people that he hung out with he hung out with Andy Warhol and people like that. And I just knew him as this kid. And to me, he was my favorite dancer, male dancer, because he had a way of dancing which was grounded. The way that he danced was almost like native dancing. His plie was so much more grounded. And so whenever I saw him dance, it was like I could see his indigenousness in him. Now, we were in completely different crowds, and I always admired him. We didn't become friendly until the end of his career. And at the end of his career, he started embracing his culture. And it was wonderful to see because his indigenousness was so much in his DNA that I could see in his dancing. And he then at some point connected to it in a way that was just really terrific. I've seen Maria Tallchief dance. I haven't seen a lot of other Native people dance, but New York City Ballet has had many dancers from all over the world. And one of the wonderful things that I felt about New York City Ballet was they were the most highly developed social people, because they were also a community, and a really strong community that supported each other, and that were very transparent with each other. And even though they competed with each other greatly, their love of each other was magnificent. And it was the first time I had seen that kind of community operate or in action. So through most of my life, I've been searching for community. I was seeking community, and I made families everywhere I went. So I had heard at some point, if you don't have a family, you can make your own family, you can pick your family. And that's what I've tried to do. That's really what I've tried to do. And in doing this, I had to ultimately learn to accept myself, because I had felt shame that I wasn't Indian enough. You know, that old thing that, and so for me, it was like, no, you're on your own. We all have our own path. We all have our own road to travel. And even just watching or listening to people these past few weeks in this particular setting has really made me feel wonderful about that, because we all have individual paths. We all we all have our own medicine, even if we know it or not. We carry medicine, and what that medicine is, the ability to help people identify, to share your story in a way that people can identify and feel like they belong. And I've been doing that, for a long time. After 20 years, I hurt my back really badly as a stagehand, and I did not want to retire. So I went back to school, and they tricked me into. At the time, they were really in need of social workers. So every test you take points you to social work.
Well, that brings us up to the next question. How did you start the Wellbriety movement at AICH?
This is how that happened. This is exactly how that happened. I became a social worker. I didn't want to be a social worker. And when I was in school, I met a woman who introduced me to Don Coyas, because she knew I was Native, and I was having a lot of difficulty in school because a lot of what they were teaching us was a very hierarchical approach, and that did not feel right to me. It was necessary for me to recognize that, gee, our people don't operate that way. We have more compassion, we have more concern. We don't discharge or we don't dismiss our people. You know, if they're not doing well, we can't afford to. So I got in contact with Don, and he gave me a scholarship to come to one of his events, and it was magnificent. I mean, my biggest memory, one of my funniest memories is, excuse this, damn, can Indian people sit still? Damn, can Indians be patient when an elder's speaking? You know, the elder can stop speaking and they'll be quiet for a minute and he can start speaking again, and everyone just sits and listens. And I thought, you know, just the whole demeanor made so much more sense to me. And his approach was not to judge people. And I hooked into that because I placed so much judgment on myself in my early life. I mean, I could identify everything that was done that I thought was done harmful to me. I could have spent my whole life just pointing out all the things that were wrong with society. And I just was tired of that and didn't want to do that. There was a part of me that recognized that, you know, we could all have peace in our lives and care about other people and have compassion. And so from Don, oddly enough, my approach to being a CASAC, I was a drug counselor, was love, as opposed to forcing people to change, asking people to change their behavior. My approach then became, how do you heal from the trauma? And then that became a big deal, informed trauma, and everybody started using informed trauma for everything. But in reality, most people have experienced trauma in their lives, one form or another. You know, I still get angry when I see, you know, how the news, I don't get angry, but it gets my attention when I see how the news normalizes rape, how the news normalizes prison, people going to prison. That's not natural. For our people, that's a trauma. And when I first heard a Native person who had been in prison admit that he was traumatized, it gave me so much hope. Because until we acknowledge our pain and our trauma, you can't heal from it. You have to acknowledge that it exists and that you're hurting. So that, I spent 15 years doing that. I've had 50 people in Wellbriety. I've had 2 people in Wellbriety. If one person comes to Wellbriety, it's a Wellbriety meeting. If 50 people come to the meeting, I have to try my best to pay attention to every single person of those 50 people. And I can have a 2.5-hour Wellbriety meeting and talk to 20 people afterwards individually who feel like they want to talk about something that they were not comfortable sharing. The most important thing for me in Wellbriety is to make it a safe place. It's the safety of every person in the room. You know, I fell in love with the people. That's all there is to it.
With everything going on right now with COVID-19, what can you tell our viewers about grief?
Acknowledge if you have grief, if you feel pain, if you feel angry, If you feel frustration, if you feel sad, acknowledge it. Find someone that you can talk to about it. Because you're not alone, basically. We're basically not alone. I mean, one of the hardest things for me to do was to learn to ask for help. And when you learn to ask for help, you'll find that it's there for you. And grief is real. So you can heal from grief.
Yeah.
And the way that you heal from grief is words. Talking is medicine. So it's a talking medicine. So, and it's important to listen as well, because the idea of remaining teachable. If someone says something and you don't identify with it, that's not something to focus on. What you do is you wait for something that you identify with. It's identify, not compare. And eventually somebody's going to say something that you identify with. And that's the person that you can talk to afterwards. That's the person that you can have a dialogue with. Because we all have slightly different take. We have different experiences. We were taught different things, but we all still have an inherent, they're all still inherent things about ourselves. We can be hurt. We have values. And the most important thing is, no matter how much you've been hurt, recognize that you were taught values. Whether you believe it or not that you were taught values, no, because we as people, we will go places, we will seek out people, we will find a way to get through. We will find people that have a particular value that allows us to feel comfort. So even when we go through the greatest pain, and some of the pain that I've seen people have tears at my heart.
Yeah.
But if I sit with them long enough and they don't feel judged, I can find something that they like, that, you know, that they care about.
Yeah.
And that's an opening.
We recently lost Kevin Durant, and what are your what can you say to our AICH friends and relatives out there about this?
Well, I have my own version of that, because I did not have a huge relationship with Kevin, but it tore my heart.
Yeah. When I lost my granddaughter, who was age 21, and she was like, we were like soulmates. I was so totally devastated. My grief was so debilitating for me, which is not like me, because that's not who I am. But I could not pull myself out of that hole. And I kept sinking deeper and deeper. And then I realized that I needed to talk. I held a lot back, because being the rock of the family, I knew that if I wasn't strong and I couldn't be out there, and if I fell apart, they would all fall apart. I mean, that's what I thought. That may not have been the case, but that's truly what I thought. And once I reached out and found the help and talked to people and expressed how I felt, the talking about it made it a little bit easier to bear, little by little. And I was able to really get to the point. And the one person who helped me there was Tom Porter. I don't know if any of you know Tom Porter.
Yeah.
He's absolutely wonderful. He's been a friend for quite a number of years. Rosemary used to have him come to the community house quite a lot and do all sorts of talks and discussions. And he explained to me the Mohawk way of life and death. And once he explained it to me, I got it. And I realized that it wasn't me. I was not in control. I thought I was in control. I did the coulda, shoulda, woulda, which you can't, you know that, you probably teach that. It's not our fault, nothing about it. If only, I wish I had, blah, 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 all of that kind of thing. And once I got to that realization that I wasn't in control, I was better able to handle it. And because I've had so many losses in less than a year, I'm the last of my siblings. I've lost my daughter. I've lost so many people. Kevin, who was like a son to me. All of that enabled me to be able to handle each one of these losses a little bit better. So, yeah, you're right. You're right, Zuben. You have to reach out. You have to talk, and there are people out there who have a lot of love and caring, and they will give that to you and help you over the humps. And you think nobody wants to listen to my sad story, but they will, and just listening is a help.
Thank you for that. With Kevin, for me, for some reason, I have a lot of empathy, and I can cry from gratitude. I can cry from just about anything. And one of the things that really struck me about Kevin was how many people he touched, how many people cared about him, how many people knew him. So a lot of the grief that I feel is sort of that global grief that everyone is feeling. Even though I didn't have a lot of interaction with him, I felt really blessed to be able to sit in his drum circle the times that I did. I would hold him hostage after we had drum circle and talk to him for an hour and a half and ask him questions, and we would laugh, and we would talk about the things that matter to both of us, which is basically the reality of living a spiritual life and what living a spiritual life is about. And I never heard Kevin speak with anyone else about that. And, and we basically just agreed on the importance of it. This is part of my story that I have to tell because it's the only way that I can complete this talk is when I got sober, I was so desperate to find a connection to a higher power that, and I was also led to Sundance. And I went to Sundance, and I was adopted. And it was the most life-changing experience. The combination of getting sober and going to Sundance together was the most, probably the most life important experience I had. And I was able to connect to that world, to the other side. And I learned so much about how the medicine wheel works and how all people are in the medicine wheel. And if I looked directly across from me, I could see someone doing the opposite of what I thought was right, or what I thought was the way to do something. And I could recognize that that person was doing that because that was his path that he was on, and that's what he did to survive. We all do different things in order to continue our path, and how everyone belongs in that circle. That's what I took that to mean. And so I've been blessed to Sundance, many times. And when I wake up in the morning, when I go outside, I'm grateful. There's nothing about my life that I'm not grateful about. I can be in discomfort, I can be in the hospital, and I'm grateful for every moment of my life. And when I go outside, there's two trees that are just across from me, and they talk to each other. The wind will blow, and this tree will talk to this tree, and then this tree will answer this tree. And when people say that they don't like living in the city because there's no nature, I'm sorry, buddy. Take your shoes off and walk to Central Park. Just walk around in Central Park barefoot. The spirit is there. The spirit is there. Everywhere you look, the spirit exists. And I may sound like a preacher, but that's what I believe. I believe that, to me, ceremony is the most important thing in my life, is ceremony. Because no matter when I go to ceremony, I'm touched. I'm connected. I'm connected to all of you. I'm connected to the whole world. I'm connected to the sky. I'm connected to all the animals. I'm connected to everything when I'm in ceremony.
Zuben, can you tell us about when you went to Standing Rock?
Standing Rock was a ceremony. Standing Rock for me was a time where I went there and I thought I was going to do Wellbriety. I thought I was going to be in the big yurt and do your Wellbriety, and I was going to help a lot of people, because I know that a lot of people, struggle with alcohol. No, that isn't what the Creator had in mind for me. Standing Rock was another blessed moment for me, and Candy asked me to be the elder in her camp, and one thing she asked me to do was to take care of everyone in the camp, especially the allies, because the allies were typically allies who thought they had the answer to everything, who were trying to colonize the camp. And I had to treat them with love and compassion, the most love and compassion, because if I attacked them, they would be defensive and they weren't going to learn anything. And then I was also lucky, Rick somehow got me in a hotel, and one of the blessings of that was that it became the shower for people. So I must have had 40 people come and take a shower who needed medicine. We cried and hugged and on and on and on and on. And so that was the gift that I was given by Candy. I mean, I was so thrilled to see her last night, but I didn't want to interrupt. And, but I'd spoken to her a few days before, so it was fine. But Candy is one of my favorite people, and I love her dearly, and I thank her, for that opportunity. I got to stay in her teepee, and we laughed till like 4 o'clock in the morning, just telling funny stories. And so this is what's important to me, is that we recognize that we're all connected. That we, last night in last night's meeting, I didn't need to say anything because it was all said. Candy and Robin were, they were touching my heart and reminding me of things, that are important to me. And so I came away from Standing Rock with, 50 new Facebook friends.
What year was that?
Standing Rock?
Yeah.
No, this was for the pipeline thing.
Water for 2016.
Yeah, that was for that.
Yeah.
Also I was blessed, that the community house, because because I couldn't drive in the van, they flew me there. I got like first class treatment. They flew me there, they flew me back, and Rick, when he left the hotel, he gave me the hotel, and I was kicking it.
Rick Chavoya.
Zuben, I never actually stayed in there.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, you were busy. I believe it. You were running, you were in that other camp.
Yeah, that other camp.
Afraid to go to that camp.
Were you guys in Mandan?
We went to the casino. We were in the casino.
Oh, Prairie Nights Casino?
Yeah, Prairie Nights.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, and one of the things I also want to emphasize, I lived half of my life in a negative fashion, thinking everything was bad, everything was not good, couldn't achieve, I wasn't going to do this, I wasn't going to get to do that. So for me, it's a blessing to see people that don't have that illness. To me, it's an illness. So when I see people, and please don't be embarrassed, when I see people like Canis, Tecumseh, who don't let things hold them back. You also have heard me say I'm the crying elder. When I see my elders, they tell me, please don't stop crying.
So Zuben, we need inspiration from you about COVID-19 and how you survived it. Can you tell us about that?
Okay. The most annoying thing about COVID-19 is that it feels like Groundhog Day. That's where I get sort of a little bit, but the reality is nothing bad is happening to us. There's nothing bad happening to us in this virus. We hear about all this stuff happening to other people. But we have to look at the reality is nothing bad is happening to us. So until something bad happens to us, there's no need for us to carry that larger burden, and take it on in that way. But if you do feel bad, once again, do a grief meeting, share your grief, whatever it is, because it should be a safe space. The most important thing about any circle is to remind people at the beginning that nothing should be repeated outside of that circle. And it's just a matter, don't think, even if you think it's okay for people to share something, don't be careless. You might share something that might actually hurt somebody. So the most important thing is to remind people not to share anything that they heard in the circle in order for the place to be safe. And you remind people at the beginning of that meeting, no matter how many times they've heard it, maybe someone didn't hear it. It's the most important thing to remind people that it's a safe place. And you make sure that you also practice that. You don't say something, carelessly to someone about what somebody said, because not everyone feels safe to share certain things, and they're taking a risk to do it. Not only is it important to respect that, it's important to recognize the importance of the dignity and the humanity of people. And you actually have to have integrity in order to do that. You have to be able to willing to give of yourself and to have compassion. You have to have compassion for whatever it is that that person is feeling. Once again, I feel like I'm preaching, but the honest truth is that I believe this, and this is how I practice this. This is how I try to live my life. Like I said, and because I do that, I can have that gratitude, for the smallest things. I know what the difference is between what I want and what I need. The first half of my life was all about wants. The second half of my life, every day I learned what I actually need and don't need. What I need is a roof over my head, food, and, because people don't. There are people in the world that don't have that. So for me to be complaining, I have a roof over my head. I have a dog that, that keeps me up at night, that makes me get up 5 times at night because she wants me to put her in the bed, and then she won't let me pick her up. But those are, blessings. Those are great things. I have a wife who loves me. I have, so many blessings. I have people around me that smile, that laugh at my terrible jokes. I'm one of those people. The way that I joke are really just sort of clownish jokes, sort of bathroom humor kind of jokes. I'm not very sophisticated in my joke telling, but it's just, it doesn't matter to me. It's just, so my fear about wanting to sound a certain way was really just my ego wanting to be, because I'm fearful like everyone else too, we're, I have fears just like everyone else. And, with me in my memory thing, I think, listen, there's not going to be a parade for me when I pass, but I set that up for myself. I have made myself, I've chosen to not put myself, out front and be famous and things like that. So, it's fine. The blessings that I've had, or the experiences that I've had, even though some of them I can't remember, but I still had them, and, they're someplace. I've had a wonderful life. I mean, there's nothing that I would change about my life. I chose very early in life not to be a doctor because I didn't want to work at something for 6 years. There were so many things I wanted to see. I got to travel all through Europe. I traveled through South America, Central America. I still, places I'd like to go now, but I'm afraid to travel now. I'd love to go to Egypt and Vietnam and Cuba. I've never been to Cuba and places like that. Because I love culture, food. Anyway, sorry, Sheldon.
So no, Zuben, can you tell us about some stories about what you remember of New York City?
What I remember of New York City? Oh my goodness! When I came to New York City was okay. I came to New York City and I knew 4 people, and they were 4 bartenders. So these 4 bartenders, I thought New York City was the greatest place to be, was the most fun, but that's what I thought New York was, 4 bartenders. And I'm going to name drop here. One of the bartenders was Bruce Willis. So we were friends for a couple of years, and until he got moonlighting. And we had so much fun, just running around the city. And I worked at a place called Cafe Central, and Cafe Central was a place where every actor who was working used to go there. Every person you can name and like from Robert De Niro to everyone you could think of used to go there, and I thought I was a movie star because they were there, and because I was serving them drinks, I thought I was a movie star. Unfortunately, I found out that I wasn't a movie star when we would go out and I couldn't afford to pay for anything, and and they would humiliate us by making us wait till they paid the bill. And luckily I got out of that because that's when I got the job at New York City Ballet, and I quit the bartending job. But those were stories. Columbus Avenue, the block where I live on, there was a bar on every street, and it really was, you knew everybody in the store. And I mean, this is something that kind of breaks my wife's heart, is because she was working at a store right on the corner that was a pet food store, and they're all closing. And it's breaking her heart because these are all people that she had relationships with. When you work retail, ultimately it's about creating relationships, like everything is. But I had relationships all over town. I knew a lot of people. I thought I knew everybody on the Upper West Side, and it was really a fun place to be in New York. Jock knew a different crowd of people, and I just never got downtown. I just never got downtown to get to know those people. When I moved to New York, I thought I was going to live downtown on the East Side, and instead I wound up living on the Upper West Side and never left. So, I'm sure that there are other people that could tell you better stories about the Lower East Side and things like that. But
Zuben, I lived on the Upper West Side in the early 70s. What years were you living there?
I lived on 81st Street, and when I moved on 81st Street, it was a crack block. 80th and 81st Street were crack blocks. So there was a lot of, there was mostly Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. There wasn't a lot of black people. And 72nd Street was Needle Park.
What years were those?
I would have to say around 78 and going forward. 78 going forward there. And Needle Park was very interesting because, well, this is a bad story. At night you walk by there and you just look at Needle Park and there was looked like the floor was moving. But then you walked over to it and it was rats. There were thousands and thousands of rats that were in Needle Park. And then you see photos of Needle Park back then, and they were the heroin addicts wore suits and sports coats and stuff. It was very different. It was very weird. It was like going back in time to see, oh, drug addicts were different back then, But Sheldon, get me back on track here.
What about Spider Woman Theater and Louis Mopsy? What do you remember?
I did not get to experience that. I did not get to experience a lot of that. And that's another reason that I appreciate it so much now. Because I appreciate the legacy. I appreciate the fact that they've been around for a long time. And I try not to dwell on, the things that I miss like that. I try to just appreciate, really for me, one of the most wonderful things is seeing younger people have the courage to make mistakes, really, to have the courage to make strong choices, to make overconfident choices, and the thing I had to learn was not to lecture them, not to tell them what to do, but to hopefully, if they fall, then I could help them up if they need to be helped up. But my nature is to tell people what to do, and I have to really, try not to do that.
So 3 words, Buffy Sainte-Marie.
I just knew Buffy Sainte-Marie from California. there was a place called McCabe's Guitar. And who is it? There was this one, Jackson Brown. Jackson Brown was friends with Buffy St. Marie and John Trudell. So what McCabe's was, every Friday they had a back room to a guitar shop, and maybe 100 people could fit in there. And I've seen Buffy St. Marie and I've seen John Trudell there. And John Trudell sort of flipped my world upside down, because I'd never seen anyone that committed, that knowledgeable. And, you know, those are the kinds of things I remember, you know, are times that I've had an opportunity to learn more of what I was missing, what I needed to connect to. And for me, it's about spirit. It's, you know, it's really, those are the things that connect to me, that connect to my spirit. And I have to, I try very, I acknowledge anything that feels spirit to me. Anything that connects to my spirit, I acknowledge it, because if I don't, because of the things that I've seen in my life, you know, I've seen miracles, you know, some of the things that, you know, you see in ceremony are real. And if I don't acknowledge them, I could very easily say the next day, well, maybe I overreacted, maybe that didn't really happen. But they do, the spirit world exists, and, you know, and you know, and when I go to Sundance, the experience that's most valuable to me is to sit with my elders, and I consider all elders my elders, because I don't have my own specific elders from my family. Someone may, you know, I consider all elders to be my elders. All elders to be my elders. And if they, yes.
How do you feel surviving COVID-19?
Well, oddly enough, I did not think I was going to survive COVID-19. So I was, I thought I was prepared to cross. I didn't think I would struggle if it came time. But the truth is that I'm fighting very hard to keep moving. You know, I had physical therapy yesterday, and it's limited. I can't take deep breaths, but by the end of physical therapy, I was soaking wet. So I know I have the ability to push myself. I didn't die in that PT yesterday.
You're an inspiration. Can you tell us your sort of symptoms? And I mean, you've overcome them, right?
Well, it's interesting to me, because I have a really, my strongest medicine that I carry is denial. So when I know what real pain feels like, because I've had spinal fusion twice. I had sciatica for 6 years. I've had open heart surgery, quadruple bypass. So I know what real pain is. So everything else that I experience in my body, I just call it sensation, because real pain is unbearable. So all the symptoms that I felt with COVID was a little different because of my past experiences. I have another thing, which is that denial has failed me, is that all the times that I've been ill before, I wait too long to address it. And for some reason, it takes 3 people to carry me. So when my wife called 911, she has to call the fire department because the two people can't carry me. So the fire department has to come and pick me up and put me in the, and they lecture me, and I just hate that. The fire department's yelling at me already. Okay, I already know I did something stupid. So I wasn't going to let that happen with this. I was properly concerned. And so I had a temperature for 48 hours for no reason whatsoever. So that's how I knew I had it. And then what happens to me is my body feels like it's 5,000 pounds and I can't really move it. And that lasted for a couple of days. And I developed a cough, which I never have coughs. And I developed a cough, and every time I cough, it out. So, and my primary care doctor said, don't come to the hospital. It's not a good idea for you to come. If it gets impossible, then you come. So I treated my COVID like as if I had a cough. I've got Mucinex and cough syrup. And so for a month, I've been taking Mucinex and cough syrup, and I've built myself up now that I can actually do physical therapy in hopes of going back to heart rehab, which was really marvelous for me. I was going 3 times a week, and I was able to do 3 exercises for 20 minutes, 3 different exercises for 20 minutes. And that, it was terrific. I was feeling more like myself. The problem, and some of the problems I have are now that I can't walk because my balance is really bad because I have neuropathy real bad. But that's been, my blood sugar is now correct. My diet is now correct. Now, if I can just get back to the exercises, maybe I can lose some weight, because it's not, you can't just lose weight. You have to exercise to lose weight. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're living proof that, COVID-19 is not a death sentence.
Well, my wife has it. So we both we both think that it's not, we both think that there's different strains. We really do think that there are different strains and we feel like we don't know for sure but we just think, well, we must have had a mild form of it. Because my wife was down for a couple of days. She gets really tired. She's very type A. Her solution to everything is to go to the gym. And she's able to, she was able to keep us in kosher food for this whole time we're going through COVID, because we have Save Artist is a block and a half from us, so we've gotten a lot of our food from there, and the delivery places. Unfortunately, I can't have Chinese food once a month, which was because they stopped delivering. But she's over, most of it. She can't smell things well, and she says her taste buds aren't as good as they used to be. But I'd never had anyone cook for me until I got married. That was a blessing. And I've been married 13 years, so.
I guess the news media makes it like elder people are susceptible, but you've survived. So just tell us more about that.
Okay, the reason I've survived is because I've been incredibly isolated. I do not take any chances. I do not do anything that does not feel that like it might put me at risk.
Right.
I don't go outside. I'm comfortable with that. It's Groundhog Day, but I know that at some point I believe that it's saving my life. I don't care what other people do. That's their business. My wife is she's tyrannical. she'll yell at people out the window if they don't have their mask on. I have to calm her down. I have to say, honey, I don't think, I want to carry that much negative energy in my body. So what they do is their business, as long as I'm doing what I should be doing, and if it's somebody I care about, I can casually mention it to them. And if somebody's in a place that close to me, I can always politely excuse myself. I learned that a long time ago. Any situation you're in, you can politely excuse yourself. And I practice that as much as I can, and I have friends that I talk to. I have people that I'm in touch with. But another thing is I like being alone. When I was drinking, I was an isolator, and there's something about drinking. I like being in my own head. I find myself very interesting. I have a lot of books, that I read. I got caught up in reading about trauma for a couple of weeks, and I was like miserable. What am I reading about? This is serious trauma that people experience.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, well, you probably got some more uplifting books around here you can look at. But
I escape by watching exciting action-packed movies. And my 9-year-old grandson said to me yesterday, I was watching one of those action-packed, people are running all over and chasing each other and fighting and kicking and shooting, because it just sort of takes me away. And he said to me, why do you always watch such violent movies, Grandma?
That's the same as me. My wife, she thinks she's a DUI king. She watches every show. She thinks she can build a house from watching these shows.
My sister used to be like that, and Lance used to get so mad when she would say, Lance, this is what you have to do. And he would get so annoyed because she thought, she was homebound, staying in the house, staying in her recliner, going to the kitchen, cooking, and then going back to her. So he thought that when she would talk to him like that she really didn't know what the heck she was talking about. But it's true. You can learn so much from those DIY movies and stuff, really.
Well, she thinks she's,
She thinks she's a construction worker.
Oh yeah, she thinks she could do it.
Expert would.
And she's always looking for property to buy. She wants to buy a barn in the town that Chalk Soda lives in.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I like MMA, and it really kind of goes against my nature, because I really, I'm not all that into it. And she's always complaining about. I watch violent shows too, but so we have interesting talks, and we try to find compromises that we can both sort of do. And we've kind of watched everything on Netflix, so we haven't missed much.
Hey, Zuben. Oh, yeah, here's Ty. Ty wants to ask a question.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And Zuben, so far, just awesome. Thanks for giving us some words of your background and story. This has been so great so far. And I actually had a question about, I was curious. I was like, oh, you showed us some awesome necklaces you were making, and you were sort of talking about this idea about giving them away and people you've given to, which is, just a great gift to people. So my question for you is, I was wondering about who was the first person that gifted you a necklace, if you can remember a significant time, and what happened, and what does gift giving mean to you? What does that mean to you?
Okay, Ty, I'm going to break your heart here. Ty, I'm very arrogant. I can give gifts, but I can't receive them. That is not, I'm not saying that I do that, but that's my nature, and that's something that it's very difficult for me to accept gifts. A lot of it has to do with me not feeling that I deserve them. And I know that what I automatically do now is recognize that I'm depriving someone of the gift of giving. You know, I enjoy giving so much. How arrogant of me to not allow other people to experience that same thing. To me, it's a gift is something that comes from the heart.
Yeah.
When I give somebody something, it comes from the heart. I pray, I smudge every single, if it's a bracelet, I smudge it. There's intent in everything I make. I don't expect other people to have that intent. Once I give that gift to someone, if they give it away, that's none of my business. It really, because the gift for me is giving. It's it's a gift for me to be able to give. So the part of it, I still have a little ways to go, and if I hesitate when somebody gives me a gift, I can immediately default and recognize, no, that's wrong. But there was a time where I wouldn't accept gifts from people. I mean, I would get a cashmere sweater from somebody who really, truly loved me, and I wouldn't wear it for 6 months. And I had to learn, that people care about you. I mean, this is a story I'm going to tell for Tecumseh. About when, after when I became a social worker and had been a social worker for about 15 years, and I left that period of my life of working in the theater, 20 years of working in the theater. And I had just assumed that the fact that I cared for all these people and that I had feelings for them and that they were never far from my heart, I assumed that they didn't feel that way about me. And so one person found me and she friended me. And the next day I had 50 new friends from the ballet. They hadn't forgotten me. I mean, this was, I was at that age where I hung out with them. I dated them. I was at that age where I was sort of had, was, feeling my best, or trying to be my best. And so there was a lot of interaction, and I said earlier that they socialize. They're emotionally mature, dancers are, in every way. And so that story was for Tecumseh, because I told him once and he liked that. But it showed me that, I have a certain amount of arrogance, and there's a certain arrogance to think that I'm the only one that cares about people. And that people, have long memories, and people may, long to be in touch with people that they haven't seen, or people have had an effect on their lives. And that I thought I was the only one that people had that big of an effect on my life. And it isn't true. We all connect throughout our lives. We connect to each other in meaningful ways. And they're long-lasting connections. They're not just, connections that come and go. They're more connections that actually affected our life, that changed our life, that are meaningful in ways that other people may not know. But we all are that way, not just we all have that quality. We all have that humanity. We all have that capacity to love. When Kobe Bryant died, I was astounded at how many people loved him. And it was because he had the ability to inspire people, to inspire people's imagination, to make people feel like they could do something, they could be something. And we all have that capacity. Every single one of us. Because we all have that much love inside of us.
Zubin, we've been told at this time that we're going to die of COVID-19, that we have a fear of it. And then here you are, you're a survivor.
All we can do is to live our lives with the possibility that we could die, but not to live with the fear that we're going to die when there's no evidence. Like I said, we're not hurting from COVID virus. We're not hurting from the COVID virus at this very moment. We're in the present, we're not hurting from these things. Therefore, why should we be living with the fear that that isn't real? There's precautions that we can take.
You're proof of that.
Well, what is this? Is not something, but I'm not special because we're all this. We all have to have that ability to understand that you know, I cannot tell you how much. Once again, Dennis, don't be embarrassed. How much you inspire me.
I'm not, and I appreciate it. You actually said something though that I wanted to just reiterate, and I found interesting because you said about the present, and I feel like that's something that we're actually being forced into right now. You know, some people go about
Yes.
their daily lives either anxious about the future or anxious about the past. And although we can still do that during this time, because we are not able to do a lot of the things we do in our lives, we're very much more so, I feel like, in the present because we kind of have no other choice. And so I was just wondering if you can maybe talk about that a little bit, about, do you have anything to say about like living in the present, if that's helped you at all in your journey?
Well, that's what ceremony is. When you're in ceremony, you're in the present. You're not. One thing is humans being, not humans doing. Humans being. That concept pushing me toward the present, puts me in the present. I'm not doing something, I'm being who I am. So if I'm being something, I'm in the present. Once again, it's like there's no way to. For me, when I go to ceremony, it's all about being in the present because all the distractions. You know, when Sundance is a thing that you do that you don't think you could possibly do. Dancing from sun up to sundown is not something that you think you can do. In order to do it, you have to be there and experience every moment of it. You can't be daydreaming. You don't daydream when you're doing Sundance. And when you do this, the more you find out what that is, what the meaning of that is.
Sacrifice.
it's you think it's a sacrifice when you go there and you don't understand it. But when you go there and you understand it, it's you see all the connection to the earth. You understand what that connection really is. Like Robin was saying yesterday about how we all indigenous people have that, and it's miraculous that all indigenous people have that. That was one of the things that I experienced at Sundance. Was in the morning, 6 o'clock, somebody woke up and would start singing. And it brought on that connection to the earth. If you did not understand what they were singing, you knew that they were in the same place that you were, because it's about being present. It's about being connected to whatever it is that is around you, which is really the earth. It's really about, being connected to the earth and the universe. And with all the different creation stories, they all still have that connection to the earth. So when you go to Sundance, you originally think it's a sacrifice. You have to, I guess I can say this. You have to do 405 tobacco ties, and your hands aren't used to doing that. Your hands aren't nimble enough to do that. So it's very frustrating. And eventually you get it, because you're present for each tie, you're present for each thing you have to do. And, it's very odd, because if one of the things that happens is if you have allies that are going to Sundance, and this is not a put down, this is just the nature of it. They want to know everything that's going to happen before it happens. They just want to know everything. And our job is to have love and compassion for that person who's maybe driving us crazy. To have love and compassion for that non-native person, because my intercessor tells me that our medicine is for everybody, not just for our people. Now that's controversial. I could get some definite negative feedback from the people writing in, but that's what I believe, and that's what I practice, is that our medicine is for everybody.
Zuben,
So,
did you get pierced at Sundance, or you just danced? Did you get pierced?
Melissa, that's bragging. I have so many piercings.
Oh yeah. Oh, I just thought because you left that part out. I just wanted to thought maybe you didn't do it.
Well, no, the thing is, there's jokes, there's jokes about Lakota people who just, when they're out with their friends, the first thing they want to do is take out their shirt, and
you don't have to take your shirt off, though.
No. Well,
no, I'll say Zuben's been pierced. He has the marks, and he's been pierced. So being humble, Zuben, stay humble. And yes, he has.
Can you tell us more about that experience?
You don't feel pain. It's the epitome of being present. There's nothing more present than being there and having somebody pierce you. When you break, your body starts healing immediately. When you break from the tree, immediately you can feel your body healing you. That medicine they use, put on your piercing. By the next day, you're scabbed over.
Maybe that's why you're so strong and you're surviving right now.
Oh
And
no.
you saw things that are not from this world, right?
Yes. Who said something yesterday? Yeah, I've seen things, I've seen lots of things. And once again, it's the kind of thing that um, you don't talk about it because it can become mythologized. It's private. You talk to your intercessor about it, and he tells you, "Oh yeah, that's what you saw that. Oh yeah, I've seen that." Um, I will share this with you, Sheldon, and you all can hear this. Um, when I was in the hospital, um, I had a dream 4 nights in a row, and I was in the wind cave 4 nights in a row. And I called my intercessor, and he said, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, you would see that from from your experiences, and somehow that's where you know that's where you belong. That's where that was you experienced the creation story." And I wasn't afraid. It was very strange because I had to look at the possibilities I was leaving, and I wasn't afraid. And it was up to me whether or not I wanted to stay. And I said, "Yeah, let me stay till Trump's gone." That was a joke, you guys.
We're laughing.
I got it.
Zuben,
Zubin, I think that ceremonies like that and practicing those sacrifices, like being pierced and so forth, are that sort of like prevention medicine for when really hard times hit us or things start to attack our body. Our body gets accustomed to immediately healing.
I have
Survival mode.
but because
I
of
think
all
that's
my illnesses, I have a really weak immune system because I have a lot of other issues. So for me, I don't think of it that way. And what I also think about is we do Sundance, or this is what my intercessor tells me, that we do Sundance so that there will come a day that we don't have to do Sundance because we're doing it for the people. So we shouldn't be proud about doing Sundance. We should be praying that there's a time that we don't have to do Sundance. And that to me is humility in a way that I needed to understand it. I'm not proud about doing Sundance. I'm grateful to have the community that I have in Sundance. I'm grateful to the insight that it gives me into how I see the world and how I see our connection because of Sundance. If I'm ever invited to another person's ceremony, it's the greatest honor for me to be asked to someone else's ceremony, another nation's ceremony. It would be the greatest honor because we are all the same and we are all connected, and there will be something in there for me. Unfortunately, I can't travel, so I may not get to do that. A part of me wants to go to Arizona. A part of me wants to spend time with with the people in other nations. Just to be with them and to what I believe is the greatest gift is love, and to share that with each other.
Zubin, there are 4 colors in that pipe, and they represent the root races of man. Can you tell us about that? White, black, yellow, red?
These are things that I'm never quite sure how real they are, because there are real people that write about Lakota creation story and Lakota mythology, and these things I'm not sure if they were created in 1978. But the way I was taught and the way that my beginnings was that it was the 4 different races. And the way it was taught to me was black race, red race, yellow race, and the white race. And the white race, if you think about it, it's absolutely correct, because there has to be indigenous people in Russia that still exist. All the paganism that came out of Europe is really about indigenous beliefs and connections to the earth. So, and Chinese people the same way. They have a real connection to the earth and animals and things like that. And the black race, same thing. And the other thing that is prevalent in indigenous people are drums, song, and dance. If you think about the black race, their drums are strong, and that represents a really strong heartbeat. And prayers and dance and singing and dancing are prayers. With all indigenous people, they're prayers. So that's another connection that exists with the 4 colors. And oddly enough too, sometimes if you look to the east, you see some of their adornments, some of the things that they have are similar to ours. Now, I'm not a believer in the Bering Straits, so I just believe that, we're connected in other ways. We're connected to the earth, we're connected in spirit, and there are certain things innate about that, which is, we appreciate things that come out of the earth in every way, and we honor them, and one of my favorite things is, to read where someone is really eloquent on on certain beliefs, like in the Sweetgrass book, she does a wonderful story on the Mohawk creation story, and it's beautifully worded, and then she talks about strawberries, and whenever she talks about strawberries, I think about Melissa, because Melissa's understanding of strawberries, and in this tells stories how you don't take the ripest strawberries, you take the second ripest strawberries, so that the person behind you is picking strawberries might need those. And these are not sacrifices, they're choices of understanding, once again, what you need and what you want. We don't need all the strawberries to be picked. We don't need all the sage to be picked. We don't need the sage to be picked by its roots. These are all considerations, for Mother Earth. So these are kind of stories I like to remind me, because we live in such a consumer world. The consumer world is so overpowering, that we can forget and we can be lazy and we can be cavalier. And, I'm not trying to be perfect, but I can at least be conscious. If I'm trying to be conscious about everything I do, I can't just ignore certain things that are in front of me, in front of my face. For me, when it comes to charity, it comes from a way of, I have enough, I can afford to give this, and unfortunately, I'm never going to make a lot of money because that's how I think. But I'm happy with the way I've lived my life. Maybe I
We had a question come in the chat box from Tecumseh. Tecumseh, do you want to just pop on and ask it, or do you want me to read it?
Sure. Zuben, what's your favorite life experience you've had?
You're putting me on the spot. Okay, this is going to kill you. It's going to kill everybody. My tribe is Alcoholics Anonymous. My tribe will always be Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if I did not get sober, I would not have had all the wonderful experiences that I've had with other tribes. I will not have had ceremony. I will not have had the appreciation that I have for people. Think about it. Growing up in South Central Los Angeles, never in a million years that I think I would come to a place where I have love for every person on the earth and that I practice it. How did that happen? I didn't make that happen. The Creator came into my life and made that happen. So the tent in AA is so large that everybody fits in it. Native people fit in there, even though sometimes it's hard to get people sober. The people that have been the longest, Native Americans, got sober through AA. And they'll tell you that. They're not afraid to tell you that. Even if they're doing low priority, even if they're doing low priority around their own nation's traditions. It came from, something greater that, it came from something divine. So that would have to be the main thing. The other things will have been, Sundance. The other thing will have been to not have died when I was surfing. I survived surfing. I surfed for a long time in dangerous situations. I didn't die. I got shot at when I was a kid. I was stabbed when I was a kid. All that stuff, kind of superficially, I dodged those bullets. If I think back, they're meaningful too, but I would have to say that. And getting sober.
I was just gonna also say or ask too, you talked a lot about, when we talked about being in the present and you talked about ceremony, we talked about being urban Indians and being disconnected from our community and our culture and then reconnected later in life. And so I'm wondering, because so many of us are disconnected in so many ways right now, what are some ways that you can suggest for us personally to stay grounded and present if we can't go to ceremony or we don't have that option? if we're not there yet in our journey, having access to things like that, like Sundance. Do you have any advice?
To me, the whole thing is to put yourself in a circle and to open up your heart to other people. And it's to have the courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that, especially in the world that we live in. A lot of people experience trauma. Now, this is going to sort of, once again, it's not a, please forgive me, but to me, acting is a spiritual experience.
Yeah, I agree. It is.
I was, when I was in college, I was an actor, and it was too deep for me. I couldn't take, I loved rehearsing, but I hated performing. I hated it with a passion. But the things that I was able to see about myself by being present, by being in that moment, by listening to someone else direct me and try things that I did not know that I could do, was a spiritual experience. So the other aspect of that probably is the most important thing is to be willing to try something you don't believe. To be willing to, like when a person is getting sober, they don't think they can get sober. They really don't think they're going to be able to get sober. So just being willing to try it, to be willing to try something that you've never tried before. And that kind of courage, and that's another thing about community that's wonderful. Ballet dancers get to do that. We get to do that in the way that I've felt more community connection in these meetings that we've been having on Zoom. They are the second most important thing of connecting, because there's something about this is the dimensions of this that allow us to be a little more free, can kind of put our guard down a little bit. We can't smell that other person, we can't touch that other person, but there's some ability to communicate through these screens. I mean, I'll give an example of when I was getting ready to go when I was watching all the news about Standing Rock. It was being live streamed on, just came through my Facebook just because I had so many connections. The most powerful thing that I had thought incorrectly about most of my life, which was you do not show ceremony on a videotape. You don't show it. And there was a big ceremony at Standing Rock, and the sage came through my phone. I could feel the power of the medicine through the phone. Now, some people say, boy, he's crazy, boy, that guy is wacko. But no, because I'm connected to that and willing to see and feel what is available, and be willing to feel something that is different from what is people consider to be normal and regular. That's what made me go to Standing Rock, was that I felt that sage and I felt the pull of that medicine. And I had been taught, don't show ceremony, don't tell people your secrets, don't tell all of this. And this was the opposite of that. Here it was reaching out, and in circle, you get to do that sometimes. For me, it's when I do a circle, there's a structure to the way I do the circle. I start the circle and it's not directive, but there has to be some kind of a structure. When I'm teaching, when I'm doing the circle, I start with, please bring your best self to the circle. Try it. Just bring your best self to the circle. Don't bring all your complaints to the circle. Bring your best self to the circle. And that's foreign for a lot of people. They don't know how to do that. And eventually we'll get to what they need to talk about. I'll talk about it with them afterwards, but you start with bringing your best self to the circle. And before you know it, you see that you have the ability to be your best self. And then you're willing to try to be even better than something you thought you could be. And since I don't have a time limit on my circles, some people need to share for a half hour. That worked in my circle. We had somebody that would share for a half hour every time, and it was always the same share. And everyone developed an understanding and a tolerance, which became, it became a compassionate understanding point. People started to recognize, this is his journey, and his journey is just as valid as anybody else's. Now, all this just has to do with my personal preferences. But look for opportunities to be your best self, is what I'm saying. That's what acting offers you. That's what it offers you, opportunities to be different from what you believe you are, or different, to even change some of your beliefs that you didn't know. I mean, I'm so lucky that when somebody corrects me, it's a joyful moment for me, because it means I'm still teachable. You know, Tecumseh has heard me say some nonsense before, you know, and he's, Zuben, is that real? And I go, oh, no, it's not. You know, and that's okay. You know, we have to have the courage to be, you know, to try different things, to think out of the box, to be our best selves, and to make mistakes. You know, honest, you know. A lot of my compassion is based on, I want people to be compassionate with me. You know, please, I'm compassionate with you. Please, if I say something stupid, please be compassionate. You know, I'm just a human being. I'm not a spiritual being. I'm a human being. I'm half human. You know, I strive to be as connected, and I acknowledge what, you know, I've seen that other people may not have seen, or some of my experiences, but I'm a human being. I'm not never anything more than that. You know, it's my experience, and it's your experience is just as valid as mine. You know, so, you know, that's how I look at it, and I'm grateful I don't get depressed. I don't get sad. If I do, you know, and my wife will just close the door in the room and leave me alone. She's not putting up with it, you know, she's not having it. And I'm grateful for that, you know.
A lot of people are relating to what you're saying, and it's resonating. I'm just going through some of the comments again on Facebook, and you're getting a lot of thanks, and you can go see this video after and look at all the comments. Someone was saying, glad you've recovered, sending you healing vibes as you build yourself back up. We must be a receiver before we could be a giver. Thank you. Tahanish says, thank you, Zuben, for sharing your stories. Thank you for your wisdom. Lots of thanks in here. So this was a really, really great conversation, and I really appreciate you agreeing to be our guest today, Zuben. We have about 5 minutes left. If anyone wants to chime in, pop in, unmute yourself, and have a comment or question, last minute question, now's the time.
Thank you, Zuben. This was good. And, you know, we talk a lot, so we know we've had some similarities. We've had some similarities in how we grew up. You know, we both came from poor, tough, urban environments.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before. And sometimes you tease me about that. I remind you of some of the guys you grew up with. So, you know, it makes me think that this is, you know, we've got to keep reaching out. And we have young people on this Zoom. And I don't know everybody who's on Facebook, but when I think of the young people we have to make sure we're taking care of, I mean young. Young
Yeah.
we were when we were going through all our difficulties 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds who, you know, on top of tough circumstances they would have under any conditions, now they have this. So, you know, it's just so good that you're here, and that we're gonna keep reaching out and trying to give care and comfort to our community.
Well, thank you. I honor you all as well. You know, you're a little more militant than I am sometimes, and I so appreciate it. You know, because
It's a little fight. It's a little fight you talked about. We got in the neighborhood we grew up in. You know.
Yeah. Well, there's a balance. You know,
we grew up having a fight.
It allows people to choose where they fit. You know, your opinion, my opinion. I used to have a guy in my group who disagreed with everything I said, and it was wonderful because, you know, he was a very smart guy and he gave alternatives and people had choices, and, you know, because I love to hear my own voice.
Don't we all?
You know, I know I'm in trouble if I repeat myself. You know, that's when I used to have people, okay, if I repeat myself, that means I like the sound of that, what I just said. Somebody pulled their ear in, and they knew to do that. They would laugh and they tolerated that. They loved me. They did, you know, they could feel my intent, and that's all that mattered. And for all of us, you know, our intent is the most important thing. And, you know, we all have fears, and sometimes they hold us back, and you know, they're just fears that aren't necessarily real. So it doesn't mean that you don't have a right to those fears either.
Zuben, we love you.
Thank you, Zuben.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on here, everyone. I just want to quickly let everyone know of the other events we have coming up. Tomorrow, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have Native Theater Thursday. We're reading a play called Silent Quest by Don Jameson. And Saturday and Sunday, we have our Elders Talking Circle, which is a little more private than this. It's just on Zoom, not streamed to Facebook. And then Sunday at 3, we have Sheldon Raymore's live updates on Facebook about what's coming up in the week. We have a Fit Native on Friday. I'm doing another one at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then on Tuesday is our social justice series at 6 p.m. with Tatiana Benali. And Sheldon, I believe there's Wellbriety this week as well. Did you want to let everyone know about that?
Yes, Friday, 7 to 9.
Great. And can you just talk a little bit about that program? Just describe it for us.
Yeah, we have the Partridge. Wait, Melissa, where are you?
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, so Zuben, I just want to make sure that you know that we're having this on Friday, and we would like you to be in attendance because you're sort of like a huge connection for the community and for attendees from our community in attending this program. It's good to have you there, so I hope you can make it. I hope you can join in with us for that. That's on Friday at what time? You said 7 to 9?
Yep.
On Zoom, yeah, and it's basically it's focused on a lot of Haudenosaunee teachings, or rather Northeastern Woodlands teachings and traditions integrated into like mind mapping and medicine wheel teachings and so forth. So it's not just limited to those that might need to be there for their sobriety. It could be also a space for people just to attend and just learn, because it's really enriching in just the traditional knowledge that is shared. That's the real medicine there, and they'll be doing some grief strategies, different ways to grieve. So yeah, I hope you all can make it, and recommend other people who you think might need to join as well. This might be helpful for them during these difficult times because there's no AA meetings in person right now. So this is what we have to offer for the community.
So yeah, so thank you, Zuben.
Thank you.
Ganalukwa, good medicine wrapped all around you. And
Pilamaya, Pilamaya.
Yeah, and if anyone is
Lamaya.
interested in any of those programs, just send us a message on Facebook or email any one of us whose emails you have, or the info email is fine too. We can get you that info. I also want to just stress that if you didn't know, it is still census time, and we are part, the community house is a part of the Complete Count Fund this year, and we are doing our best efforts to make sure that people are doing the census and that our community is doing the census. And so if you have not done it yet, you can go to my2020census.gov and complete the census. It really helps our entire community out, no matter where you are, really. And I also have, we're going to launch a campaign that we're involving our community members with the census. And so I know that some of you, Nadima has participated already, and I've reached out to some of you who've gotten back to me. Great. I'll keep bugging others to get you involved. We'd love to have your participation. So
Gopila Tanka. Washte.
Zuben, thank you so much for doing this evening. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow at Native Theater Thursday.
I love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lamaya.
Good night,
Ona
everyone.
giwahe.
Love you, Zubin.
Love you too. Hi, Anna.
Bye.
Okay.
Hi.